So the term baritone in relation to guitar refers to the tuning of the guitar, not necessarily the scale length, which I'll get into a bit later. As you know, a standard guitar is tuned in E, going from the lowest string to the highest. That's E, A, D, G, B, E. But we can tune that differently. You could, for example, drop your E to a D, a drop D tuning for your lower string, which gives you a much heavier sound, a heavy metal kind of sound. Some people might tune their whole guitar down half a step. There's so many variations, but the standard is E. For a baritone, there isn't actually a standard tuning. The common tunings are where you would tune it to a B, which is what we call a perfect fourth below the E tuning. So B tuning goes from B, E, A, D, F sharp, back to B. We could also go for a perfect fifth, which is going lower to the A, D, G, C, E, A. So an A tuning. And some people might go for a major third, which is major third lower, which is a C tuning. C, F, B flat, E flat, G, C. You could take a normal guitar and tune it to that lower B. But if all your strings were tuned lower, you're going to find the tension on the strings is a lot less. So they're going to be a lot more sloppy when you play them. There's going to be a lot more string buzz. So in order to get that kind of tuning, you're going to have much thicker strings. So you could just put thicker strings on your guitar and tune it down. And you may have to do a few other things like change the nuts so the nut can accommodate thicker strings on it. And you may find your bridge can't be properly intonated if you haven't got enough give on it. I've got another video about intonation, so we don't need to go into that here. But the advantage of a baritone scale is it becomes a longer neck. And because it's a longer neck, there's also a longer distance from the nut to the bridge, which means it can accommodate your standard strings, still feeling like they're in the normal sort of tension you have, but tuned lower. So the strings are longer, but same feeling of tension with a lower tuning. So a standard guitar neck, like a Squire neck, like a Strat neck, sorry, is this. It's a 25.5 inch scale, which means the length from the nut to the bridge is 25.5 inches. On a baritone neck, the scale length is longer. So from the nut to the bridge, it's between 27 and 30 inches. This one I've got here is a 27 inch. So here we go, the two necks that I'm working on. If I line them up with the straight edge so that the nuts are in line with each other, you can see that as I go across each fret on the standard 25.5 inch Strat neck, they don't line up with the ones on the baritone neck. In fact, when I get to the 12th fret here, it's only on the 11th fret on the baritone. If I take my notched straight edge, where the notches line up with the frets on the 25.5 inch, you can see that there, and then I flip them up, you can see that they don't line up at all with the baritone neck. So because the length of the scale is longer, the distance from the nut to the bridge, the frets are essentially bigger as well. So here we go, I've got the strings on, I'm just going to tune it to a B, which is a perfect fifth below the normal tuning of an E. And that means the lower string, instead of being an E, is actually a B. And then we have very familiar sounding for the fifth going up. We have an E, an A, a D, and then where you'd expect a G, we actually have an F sharp up to the B. Which now means if we go back and play our usual standard chord shapes, so here I'm going to play an E shape. Instead of an E, we've actually got a B. Instead of an A, we've got an E. So it's all a fifth below. Great, well thanks for watching everybody. If you are interested in seeing more about this Dr. Gothic baritone guitar, I'll have some images up on my Instagram, etc., including the process I went through making it. But I've also got a video that I'm making at the moment, which will feature Dr. Gothic in it, of the guitar itself, so going over all the elements of it. What will be interesting is if you do play a baritone guitar yourself, maybe you could leave in the comments below what model you use and what make, and what you think of it, or even what tuning you use. As I said, this is in a B, you could go to an A, a C sharp, but there's no reason not to have any other tuning. Until next time, happy strumming.